Hello everyone! In this short tutorial we are going to talk about encapsulation. Encapsulation is a very important concept of object-oriented programming. It represents the idea of bundling data and the methods that operate on the data into one single unit. Some of the benefits of using it include preventing human errors that may come from this data being modified by accident by programmers and protecting data that should not be accessed or shown to a user. It allows access to a level without revealing complex details about the level. In other words, it helps achieve abstraction. Let's see a real-life example of encapsulation. Let's say we have a company Pi. Pi has a sales department and a finance department. The sales department stores data regarding sales each month. Let's say that a finance employee needs some data from sales to make the reports for the month. Does this employee directly access this raw data? No. The finance employee asks an employee from the sales department to give him the data he needs. The data he will get is not raw, but may be modified to the format that the finance employee needs. And finance will not get any unnecessary information or information that he is not supposed to access or to know about. Let's see some other examples from real life. Let's see the email. You have no control over actions taken in background, encryption, verification. When you log in your email account, you know how to send an email, receive an email. These are the public methods that are available to you. An automatic vending machine is a class. It contains both data, that are the cans and bottles, and operations, like the service mechanisms, and they are integrated into a single unit called vending machine. You use Bluetooth to connect with other cell phones to exchange data, but cannot control calls or SMS due to security issues. The equipment you use or games you play have a bunch of wires and are programmed to offer you certain functionalities. You don't need to know how. How do we write code with encapsulation in mind? The most frequent encapsulation example in code is a class. It contains private data and private methods, and public methods, which interact with this data. Other classes will interact with the data only by these public methods. Let's go back to the company example. We have the sales class and the finance class. Can you tell what represents the variables and what represents the methods? The data is the variables, and employees are the methods. Only they can access and operate on the data. How is encapsulation done in Python? Unlike some other languages, Python does not have a private keyword, but encapsulation is still possible. It relies on the convention that a class variable that should not be directly accessed should be prefixed with an underscore. Here's an example. We have the class robot. It has three variables, a, underscore b, and underscore underscore c. Obviously, a is a public variable. It can be accessed outside the class, while b and c are protected. But why b has one underscore and the c has two underscores? b, with a single underscore, is called a protected variable. It should not be directly accessed, but you can still do that, although you should not. On the other hand, c is a private variable. It's harder to be accessed outside the class, but it still is possible. We can see what is printed. A and b are printed correctly, while for c, we get an error. Robot object has no attribute c. I told you it was harder, right? If we change the name of the c variable to underscore robot underscore underscore c, we can see that c is printed correctly. But it's screaming not to use it, and the code smells. To make encapsulation with the class complete, we use getters and setters. We don't directly access the variables from outside, but access them from public methods which may or may not operate on them before returning. Also, we do not modify these variables directly, but through setters, which may format the new value first. Here we have the robot class complete with getters and setters. Before we said that encapsulation helps us achieve abstraction, But what is the difference between the two? When we talk about abstraction, we think about the design level. Abstraction hides unwanted data and gives relevant data to make the purpose clear. So we think about the outer layout. Like, for example, a phone has a screen and a camera to take pictures. This is the purpose of it. While when we talk about encapsulation, we are thinking about the implementation level. The reason we hide data in encapsulation is to protect this data. So we are talking about the inner layout, how a camera and screen are wired together to show an image from the camera to the screen. Let's try to create a class with encapsulation in mind. I will create a class called bird. Of course, it will have an initializer. And I will set two variables, one called name and one speed. Of course, these variables will get value from the initializer. So let's set here name and speed. So there we have the class. Now I will try to create an object, bird. I will name this bird Swift, and it will have a speed of 160. Let's try to print the speed of this object. Here we have it, 160. But the speed can be modified very easily. We just have to object.speed equals, and we can set it a string. There's nothing stopping us. Here we have it. But it doesn't make sense that the speed is a string. It has to be a number. This is why we use encapsulation, to prevent this type of errors. So first, let's add a getter and a setter for speed. So here we are returning the speed. And the setter. This will take the speed as parameter. And we have self.speed. So we don't have to do this anymore. We can now call object, set speed, and set the speed as 170. Let's see what this prints. 170, our speed was modified correctly. But can we still do this? We can. The speed is modified. Now it's a string, because we haven't set the speed variable as private, or at least protected. So let's try to make speed a protected variable. How do we do that? We set an underscore before the variable name. So everywhere we have speed, we put an underscore. What will this print? It will again print speed. As we said before, the underscore doesn't prevent you from calling this variable. It just signalizes that this is a private variable and shouldn't be called like this. It shouldn't be got like this, and it shouldn't be set like this. But people can still access the speed variable like this. So how do we make it harder to be accessed? We set double underscores. So let's try to do that. Let's try to run this code. So here we have it. It prints an error. It says that bird object has no attribute speed. Now we know that if we do a little tweak, like this. This will print the speed. But as we know, this is a very bad practice. No one should get a variable like this. What we should do instead is call the getSpeed method. And we can see that what is printed is the correct speed. Why would we want to call the getter method instead of accessing the variable speed directly? Because the getter method may want to manipulate the data before returning it. So let's say that the speed stored is in kilometers per hour and we want to set it to miles per hour when returning. Then we will want to multiply it by roughly 0.62. And here we have it. Now the speed shown is in miles per hour. Of course, we could have done a multiplication here directly in the print, but we know that that isn't a good practice. We should do all operation on data inside the class, so we have a more organized and better structured code. So to resume, encapsulation is the idea of binding data and the methods that work on this data to a single unit, a class. Why do we do this? To prevent unwanted access on the data and to allow access to a level without revealing complex details about the level. Now I encourage you to try to code more classes with encapsulation in mind. Bye!